can get used to that music, can you? Ron Paul has a warning about raising the debt ceiling. He's running for the White House, and he's warning House Republicans not to cave in from pressure on the left. And this $14 trillion figure is not going in the right direction for anyone. He's also running for the White House. As I mentioned, he's with me now, Congressman Ron Paul. How you doing, sir? Good morning to you.
Doing well.
Yeah, some pretty stern words toward your colleagues. What's wrong with raising the debt ceiling for a short period of time?
Well, I think for a short period of time, that's the problem. I think it will only encourage spending. We've been raising the debt limit for quite a few years. I was concerned about too much spending back in the 70s, so you know what I'm concerned about now, because I thought in the 70s this would continue and end up in a financial crisis, and we're in the middle of that. So to continue the process is just like driving yourself to a cliff.
Do you have any information that would suggest that the debt ceiling would not be hiked at some point very soon?
No, I look at it.
It's going to happen then, you think?
I think it's like the CR. It'll go down to the wire until the last second. I think it will be raised, so our problems won't be solved. That means that, see, the two things that permit the Congress to spend will be raising the debt limit and not even thinking about or addressing the subject that if we have too much debt, the Fed can monetize it. Those are the two big problems, and I object to both.
But if you trim the spending, would you give a little on that, or are you gonna hold firm on your position?
Oh, I wouldn't. I don't believe in those kind of deals because, let's say they raise the debt limit and they promise to cut so much in the next 5 years. Well, the only budget that counts is this year. They can't predict revenues for next year. They can't predict unemployment. They don't know what interest rates will be. So it's all up for grabs. So to say, in a year from now we're going to cut spending, I don't believe that.
The reason I ask you that is because you voted against Paul Ryan's plan, his budget,
right,
which was a big part of it, was trimming Medicare. I mean, according to him, he could save about $6 trillion over 10 years. Why wasn't that good enough to support?
Well, I gave him a lot of credit for at least addressing it. I think he gets a bum rap when they paint him as destroying Medicare when he doesn't even touch anybody 55 and over, and he makes an honest effort to make a proposal. But, when you looked at the deficit 5 or 10 years out, his deficit was slightly better than the Democrats and the president's deficit. So, and like I said, it doesn't really count.
Well, I think the phrase you used was rather feeble. Talking about that plan, was he taking off big enough bites for you or not?
Well, I don't think it was in the right place. I think we should look at the military-industrial complex. I think we should look at the empire because that's unsustainable too. And there's a growing concern about that. And right now we're voting on the DoD budget, and there's a strong sentiment to say, enough is enough. It's time that we start coming home. So I want people to look at the entire budget. But I like the position of being able to opt out. The Republicans were right when they were screaming about Obamacare. We want the right to opt out. I do. I want the people's right to opt out and do our best to cut back elsewhere and try not to throw anybody out in the street. But as long as we do nothing, everybody's going to get thrown out in the street because we're going to have a dollar crisis, and that is much worse than anything we have faced here in the last 20 or 30 years.
Gallup comes out with a poll just out today, in fact, that has you running with about 10% support right now in the Republican field. There's your top four. You're ranking number 3. You made a comment just this week about Mike Huckabee dropping out in Iowa. You think that favors you? And then you said over the past 4 years, things have changed in a significant way. And people are more enthusiastic. In what way do you sense that?
Well, in everything that I've been talking about, the financial crisis is here. It wasn't admitted to, in 07 and 08. Now everybody knows it's here. They talk about the Federal Reserve. They're talking about foreign policy. And they're talking about the serious nature of what we're facing. And but the receptions are different. The crowds are larger and more exciting. And with Huckabee out of the race, there's a lot of good conservatives there that want to stick to their guns and cut spending. So, yes, every place I go, the atmosphere has changed. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be smooth sailing and it's not a big job for me. But I know what's ahead, but I do know that the sentiment has changed. This country has changed dramatically in the last 4 years.
The last time we talked, I think it was 2 weeks ago, you said that you've been talking about this for decades. And now people are coming around to your kind of thinking. So we'll see whether or not that carries you through in Iowa. Thank you, sir. We'll talk again real soon. Ron Paul, the Congressman out of Texas.